Hello everyone. Recently, Mr. Trump ordered a fierce attack on Yemen until the Houthi organization surrendered. So what happened? And why is Mr. Trump so angry? I will explain to you in a simple and easy to understand way. To understand clearly, let's go back in history a little. 60 years ago in Yemen, a country in the Middle East under the Zaidi Muslim regime ruling this country. But by 1962, the Sunni Muslim regime came to rule, causing the Zaidi people to be marginalized and increasingly dissatisfied with the situation they considered to be oppressed in terms of cultural and religious heritage, while Saudi Arabia Salafi Islam was increasingly prominent in Yemen, ruling a country that was suddenly overthrown and discriminated against. Of course, the Zaidi people were very angry. The Zaidi people had just jumped off the back of an elephant and lost power. The Zaidi people were very angry, but they still did not take any action to usurp the throne. At that time, the Sunnis were still very strong. They were supported by Saudi Arabia. However, in this world, anything that is too tense will break. When the water is too strong, the bank will break. The Sunni government is said to have treated the Zaydis very unfairly in terms of culture, politics, and economy. The Zaydis felt abandoned. They were poor and not focused on development. It was like they were just slaves to the country, and the benefits they created were given to the Sunnis. Therefore, people said that when the water is too strong, the Zaydis secretly build up their power. But in fact, they already had the will. The force was large. They accounted for 40% of the population of Yemen. What they lacked was training and weapons because they were poor and had no money to buy anything. From afar, it was seen that the Zaydis were thirsty for revenge and also wanted to have more allies to build up their power in the Middle East, so Iran gave weapons to the Zaydis. The Zaidi people are like a drought that rains. They immediately rose up and called themselves the Houthi movement and created a civil war for decades in Yemen. The Houthi group has a very clear goal, which is to fight against Sunni Islam controlled by Saudi Arabia, against the United States and Western countries. Of course, they follow Iran, and Iran is at odds with the United States. The civil war continued until 2011, when the presidential government, backed by Saudi Arabia and close to the United States, was overthrown. The Houthis took this opportunity to immediately launch a general attack and take over most of the country. The Sunni faction had to flee to the east, so now Yemen is under Houthi control, even though the government established by the Houthis is not recognized by the United Nations, and the recognized government was driven out and forced to move to the southeast and controls a small part of the country. You see, the Houthis have long disliked the United States, but the two sides rarely launch missiles to check on each other, because the Houthis know their position relative to the United States. Not to mention that the Houthis also have to fight against the government's army. Confronting many enemies at the same time only makes it difficult for the Houthis to cope. However, society never stands still. An unexpected event happened in October 2023. Hamas, an ally of Iran, attacked Israel and started a catastrophic war that turned the entire Gaza Strip from a massive city into a pile of concrete ruins. When this war started, the Houthis stood up to declare to protect Hamas because it was too far away, nearly 2,000 km, so the Houthis could not bring troops to fight with Hamas. Instead, the Houthis took advantage of their advantage to attack ships, blocking the business routes of the United States, Europe, and all partners on the Israeli side. The Houthis are near the Red Sea, and the Red Sea is a vital shipping route connecting Europe with Asia. The amount of goods passing through here is nearly 30% of the world's container volume. The Houthis attacks on passing ships have caused difficulties for the economies of both Europe and the United States. There was a time when shipping costs increased 4 times because ships did not dare to pass through here and had to take a longer, more expensive detour. If they tried to go, they could easily be shot by the Houthis. It is not known whether they shot by mistake or on purpose, but even Chinese ships were shot, and Vietnamese people have died on this sea route. So not everyone dares to risk going through the Red Sea. Not only did the Houthis shoot commercial ships, they also shot at us warships, even aircraft carriers. The US has been angry with the Houthis for a long time, but they became even angrier when the Houthis just sat on the shore and launched missiles into the sea, hitting any ship, including warships, even us aircraft carriers. So during Mr. Biden's time, the UK was dragged into a serious airstrike on Yemen. After that, the Houthis suffered significant damage, but they were not afraid. They continued to gather weapons and fire into the sea. Now that Mr. Trump is in power, Mr. Trump calls Mr. Biden weak, and if he is going to fight, he has to fight well. So on March 15, 2025, the United States, under the direction of President Donald Trump, launched large-scale airstrikes against Houthi targets in Yemen. According to the New York Times, the attack used fighter jets, aircraft, and naval vessels to target Houthi radars, missile defense systems, and drones. Mr. Trump said that today I ordered the United States military to take decisive and powerful military action against the Houthi terrorist forces in Yemen, who have conducted a relentless campaign of violent piracy and terror against the ships, planes, and drones of the United States and its allies. Mr. Trump also warned Iran that its support for Houthi terrorist organizations must end immediately. Do not threaten the American people. Be vigilant because the United States will hold you fully responsible for this. According to a report from the Houthi-controlled Ministry of Health, the airstrikes killed 53 people, including 5 children and 2 women, and injured 98 others. The attacks took place in many areas, with images from the scene showing smoke rising from everywhere, but the Houthis were not afraid. The Houthis responded strongly, with the Houthis announcing on March 16, 2025 that they had launched 18 ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, and a drone at a US aircraft carrier and its escorts in the Red Sea. This was in response to more than 47 US airstrikes, and the Houthis stressed that they would respond with escalation. A Houthi spokesman called the US airstrikes an act of aggression and a violation of the sovereignty of an independent state, and the Houthis pledged to continue supporting Hamas. The US Department of Defense announced that the US would continue to conduct airstrikes until the Houthis stopped attacking US shipping and vessels. The US Secretary of State also affirmed that the military campaign would not stop until the Houthis no longer had the ability to attack ships. The US is certain that the attacks are necessary to protect freedom of navigation, a principle important to global trade. With Mr. Trump's personality, when the Houthis refuse to back down, cannot threaten or negotiate, will he send the army to wipe out the Houthis? Let's wait and see, and no matter what the outcome is, even in the war in Ukraine, we can see one thing: the people will always be the ones to suffer if they cannot find a good leader. Goodbye, and see you again.